have to tell you, I do have a firearm on me.
Don't reach for it then. Don't pull it out. Don't pull it out.
Hey guys, I'm Hannah Cox with Base Politics. Welcome back to my show, COPAGANDA, where each week we're looking at police video footage and examining the ways they actually violate the rights of Americans and often get away with it. This week we're returning to an old video, but I think this is an important one for you to see. Before we watch the video, I want to give a quick background on the case. In it, you're going to see Officer Geronimo Yanez pull over Philando Castile, and this was in 2016. It was for a routine traffic stop in Minnesota because his brake lights were out. So right out of the gate, we see something that I've come to call policing for profit. I often think cops behave like road pirates, where they are shaking people down over small infractions. They're really just policing people for crimes of poverty, like having your brake lights out or not renewing your registration. Not only do I think that it's somewhat immoral for us to be structuring our police system in this way, where they're simply out policing for profit and shaking American citizens down, I also think it puts both police and American lives in danger. You're creating an interaction with police that shouldn't exist in the first place, and as is so often the case, this one does lead to somebody being hurt. In the car when he's pulled over are Philando Castile, who was an elementary cafeteria worker, his girlfriend Diamond Reynolds, and her 4-year-old daughter. You're going to see the officer approach Philando Castile's window, where he promptly asks him for his driver's license and registration. There's another officer standing off screen, and we basically hear Philando begin to do what every legal gun owner is taught to do. You let the officer know that you are a legal permit holder and that you have a gun on you. You do this actually to ensure that the officer knows that you are trying to make them safe, that you are being cooperative, and that you intend to let them know where the gun is so that they can ask for it, disarm you, whatever they choose to do next. But this is exactly 101, what you're taught to do in classes. I myself have been taught to do this. Yet when Philando does it, he's dead within 40 seconds of the entire interaction beginning.
Well, sir. Good. How are you? Good. Reason I pulled you over, your brake lights are out. So you only have one active brake light, and that's going to be your passenger side one. Your third brake light, which is up here on top, and then this one back here, is going to be out. You have your license and insurance?
I have to tell you, I do have a firearm on me.
Don't reach for it then. Don't pull it out. Don't pull it out.
You just killed my boy. That wasn't me. He wasn't me.
Don't move!
He wasn't.
Don't move!
Oh, man. Oh, my God.
Don't move!
Oh, my
Don't
God.
move!
You can't move, you just gunned him down.
Don't move!
Don't move, baby.
Code 3! Get the baby girl out of here!
Stay with me. We got pulled over for a busted tail light in the back. And the police, he's covered. He killed my friend. He's licensed. He's licensed to carry. He was trying to get out his ID and his wallet out his pocket, and he let the officer know that he had a firearm and he was reaching for his wallet, and the officer just shot him in his arm. We're waiting for a back. I will, sir. No worries. I will. He just shot his arm off. We got pulled over on Larpener.
I told him not to reach for it. I told him to get his hand out.
You told him to get his ID, sir, and his driver's license. Oh my God, please don't tell me he's dead. Please don't tell me my boyfriend just went like that.
Keep your hands where they are, please.
Yes, I will, sir. I'll keep my hands where they are. Please don't tell me this, Lord. Please, Jesus, don't tell me that he's gone. Please don't tell me that he's gone. Please, officer, don't tell me that you just did this to him. You shot 4 bullets into him, sir. He was just getting his license and registration, sir.
Get the female passenger out.
Ma'am, exit the car right now with your hands up. You see your hands. Exit now. Keep them up. Keep them up.
Where's my daughter? You got my daughter?
Face away from me and walk backwards. Walk backwards towards me. Keep walking. Keep walking.
I cannot, to this day, no matter how many times I see that video, imagine having the strength of mind to be Diamond Reynolds in that moment when the cops just gunned down your boyfriend in front of you with your child, your 4-year-old child, in the backseat. She doesn't even know if she's okay or hit yet. The way that cop was shooting, like, she could easily have been killed too. Her boyfriend is bleeding out next to her. She's not even allowed to comfort him or touch him or move to do anything in his final moments. The gun is still pointed at her. She's still being threatened by this cop, and she still has the strength of mind to, one, stay calmer than this idiotic cop, and two, to start going live on Facebook, which went viral, in order to protect herself and expose what was going down in that car. And then she herself, as you can see at the end, is treated like a criminal and told to back out of the car and get cuffed. I cannot fathom staying as calm as she did. If it were me, I would have lost my mind. It is unacceptable that in these kind of interactions, citizens are expected to remain calmer and to have more presence of mind than police officers. And yet so often that is what is the case. As I mentioned at the beginning, Philando Castile does everything that they teach you to do when you get your permit. And again, he was a legal permit holder. He was doing everything that he needed to do to comply with the Second Amendment and with all the BS laws we put in place to limit it in this country. And yet he is still treated like a criminal and gunned down because of this cop's stupidity. You are told that when you're pulled over by police as a permit holder, whether you're carrying or not, because it often shows up when they scan your license, to go ahead and let the police know, hey, I am a firearm holder, I have a permit, I'm legally carrying, or I'm not legally carrying. And then you wait for the officer to tell you what to do. That's what you hear him do in this interaction. The officer says, reach for your license and registration, get your license and registration out. So he's in the process of doing that. He says, hey, just want to let you know, I have a firearm. I don't think you have to be a rocket scientist to know a couple basic things here. One, if somebody's a violent criminal planning on shooting you, they're probably not going to give you a heads up and be like, hey, officer, I have a firearm, I'm about to shoot you. Get real. Secondarily, legal permit holders are the safest and most law-abiding people in the country. Their rates of violence and breaking the law with their weapons is almost zero. They do not do it. If you want to make sure somebody's safe with a gun, a very good check on that is that they have already gone through the process to become a legal permit holder, which he obviously had done since he is telling the officer, I have a permit, I have a gun on me. And yet this idiot still shoots into the car like a madman, 4 bullets into this man's chest. Now, I want to tell you in contrast what has happened to me in very similar interactions. I am a terrible driver. I make no bones about it. I'm a safe driver, but I go very fast and I get pulled over a lot. And ever since I started carrying, I have not only not gotten a ticket, I haven't gotten a single warning since I started carrying my gun and became a legal permit holder. My interactions go almost exactly like Philando Castile's, except instead of getting gunned down with my child in the backseat, the officers usually go, that's great, sweetie. Where is it? What kind of gun do you have? Great for you. Go ahead, reach into your Louis Vuitton purse where you just told me your gun is and get your license out. I feel perfectly safe. And I have to say, I just do think that there is some racial and gender component to that. Now, when it comes to the fallout from this case, per usual, it actually gets even worse. But I want to first pick a bone with a gun rights organization before we get to the actual legal system, because the NRA of all groups should have been on the front line speaking out against this. Here you have a law-abiding gun owner getting gunned down in his car with a child in the back seat for nothing more than exercising his Second Amendment rights. And yet, even though you would think this would be a prime case for them to get involved, they mostly stayed out of it. 2 days after Philando Castile was shot dead by a police officer during a traffic stop, the NRA issued a statement where they said that his death was, quote, quote, troubling. The group added that it supported the right of law-abiding Americans to carry firearms no matter their race. Rest assured, the statement added, the NRA will have more to say once all the facts are known. But as protests took over St. Paul, the NRA remained silent. And then after a year later, when they still hadn't said anything else and the court case came down, they finally followed up, calling Castile's death a terrible tragedy that could have been avoided. No shit, Sherlock. This is similar to the same silent energy they gave to other victims of police who were exercising their Second Amendment rights in recent years, like Breonna Taylor. Now, one public face of the NRA did ultimately end up speaking out much more strongly, but he had to do so in his personal capacity and make sure to say that he wasn't speaking on behalf of the NRA, and that was Colin Noir, who happens to be a black man. He said, Wynez walking away from this case a free and clear man is just wrong. Though he said that he despised, quote, quote, race baiting, Noir wrote that covert racism is a real thing thing, and it is very dangerous. He went on to say, Philando Castile should be alive today. I don't feel like Juanez woke up that day wanting to shoot a black person. However, if I keep asking myself, would he have done the same thing if Philando were white? I don't think so. He said, while accusations of racism can be overplayed, there is a problem with some people in this country dismissing racism wholesale when it isn't over racial slurs or crosses burning on front lawns. And I have to agree with Colin here. I don't think that this person woke up, burning crosses or wearing hoods. And too often, that's the only version of racism we think about. But there is something called subliminal racism that people are not trained to catch within themselves or guard against. And when it comes to people like police or people who sit on juries, we need to have a lot more training around those things, because we do find that they are more trigger happy, that they are more likely to find black people guilty of things because of those kinds of subliminal racist thoughts. Now, as Noir pointed to in his statement, the cop got off. He did actually face charges. There was a trial, but he was found not guilty. And what I think is really interesting, and that I've never really heard anybody mention in the past, is that during the court case, Juanez actually gave a contradictory statement. During the actual incident itself, we have him on body camera footage saying, I don't know where the gun was. He didn't tell me where the expletive gun was. And he uses this as an excuse for firing at Philando because he says he didn't know what he was reaching for, basically. He could have been reaching for the gun. He doesn't know where it was. But in court, he had a very different testimony. He said Castile put his hand on his firearm, not his wallet or identification papers, and was pulling the gun from his pocket. So which one was it, Geronimo? I think we know. Juanez was ultimately acquitted on 1 count of second-degree manslaughter and 2 counts of intentional discharge of a firearm that endangered safety. Prosecutors said Juanez was too quick to pull the trigger. Exercising your Second Amendment is not a crime. The drug war was also invoked as an excuse for killing Philando Castile. Juanez tried to claim that he smelled weed in the car when he approached it and used this as another reason for his trigger happiness. He said, I thought if he has the guts and the audacity to smoke marijuana in front of a 5-year-old girl and risk her lungs and risk her life by giving her secondhand smoke and the front seat passenger doing the same, then what? What care does he give about me? Because yeah, if people smoke marijuana, there's just, very little steps forward to gunning down a police officer in broad daylight. Get out of here. Tell me which one's more dangerous. The drug war that gives people like Juanez an excuse to come gun you down in broad daylight because maybe you smoked some marijuana a couple hours ago, or smoking a plant. You've got to be kidding me. Now, during the trial, they did report that Castile had some levels of THC in his system, which is a component of marijuana. But the two sides basically argued over how much it was and whether or not he was actually incapacitated. And as most people know, just smoking marijuana, it could be in your system for many, many hours later. So there's no proof that he even was actually high or had any sort of mental impediment during the stop. But what I found is that so often when conservatives are familiar with this case, they will use that as an excuse to justify him being murdered and his girlfriend's child being endangered in the process. And I think that that's really disgusting. We have got to get past this point in society where people have to have a perfect victim in order to think that they deserve sympathy or even justice. It's unethical to say that if somebody did one thing wrong, broke one small law, that it's then okay for them to be murdered by police. I think that the Philando Castile case is one of the worst on the books, and it speaks to many problems in policing, from gun laws to the drug war to just the lack of accountability for police and the responsibility they have to act with self-control in these interactions. All right, guys, that's a wrap. Leave me a comment. Let me know your thoughts. Be sure to subscribe to my channel, and until next week, stay based.